Have you ever felt like you were set up to fail? And not like, in a small way, but like fundamentally, like existentially. Today we're diving into someone's really intense personal reflections about wrestling with that feeling forsaken by their ancestors. It's a lot. Expert speaker. Yeah, forsaken. It's a strong word. It is.
Not just about someone being absent. It suggests they made a choice, a deliberate choice, to abandon someone, to leave them behind.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so interesting to me. The source describes this like visceral sense of abandonment, like almost a betrayal. And they connect this directly to, their upbringing, their family history. Like there's this pattern of disconnect that just spans generations. Have you ever felt that kind of disconnect? Even if it wasn't specifically about like your ancestors or anything.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty universal feeling, right? Not quite fitting in, or like you're at odds with the expectations people have for you.
For sure. But for this person, it goes even deeper. They connect this whole feeling of being forsaken to their anti-natalist beliefs.
Anti-Natalism, for those who don't know, is the philosophical stance that argues against having children.
Right.
And it's not about disliking kids.
Right.
It's an ethical position rooted in, a concern for suffering.
Right.
Anti-natalists believe that bringing new life into a world full of potential pain is ethically problematic.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. The source sees their ancestors' choice to have children as like a cosmic mistake, like contributing to the state of the world as it is today and their own existence in it.
Wow.
It's like they feel burdened by the very fact that they were born.
I can definitely see how that would intensify feeling let down, even betrayed by past generations. They're grappling with the consequences of a choice they never made.
And to describe this burden, they actually use a really intriguing phrase. They call it technical linguistic debt.
Technical linguistic debt.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and tell me if I'm getting this right, technical linguistic debt is like the source's way of saying they feel weighed down by like existing language and the ways we use it to define ourselves, the world.
I see, yeah.
They specifically mention psychological typing systems as an example.
Oh, okay.
So it's like they're struggling to articulate their unique experience with like the confines of pre-existing frameworks. Like the language itself is failing them.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The way they draw this parallel between this technical linguistic debt and the feeling of being forsaken by their ancestors. It's like both are inherited burdens. One's on an existential level. The other is on the level of language and like self-expression. Has that ever happened to you? Where you felt limited by the language you used to describe yourself or the world around you? Like there just aren't words to adequately express what you're experiencing?
All the time.
Yeah.
Especially with complex topics.
Yeah.
Like identity, belonging.
Yeah.
And for this person, those feelings are, they're amplified by their anti-natalist beliefs, right? They express this deep longing for a soul family, people who really understand and share their perspective.
That makes sense. It speaks to that universal human need for connection, doesn't it? The need to find people who see the world the way we do. And it's even more acute when you have beliefs that challenge conventional thinking.
Right. And it seems like that search for connection led this person deep into the world of psychological typing systems, specifically the work of Carl Jung.
Yeah. Jung's work on personality typology is really fascinating, but also pretty complex. He categorized personality based on like these different cognitive functions. So it created this whole framework that lots of people still use actually to understand themselves and their interactions with the world.
The source was clearly really invested in finding their place within that system, like hoping it would solidify their sense of self. But then they got a typing that totally contradicted their self-perception. It threw their whole identity into question.
Whoa, that's got to be disorienting, like having the rug pulled out from under you.
It was a major crisis for them. It led them down this fascinating philosophical rabbit hole, exploring the concepts of nominalism versus realism.
Nominalism versus realism. Okay, so nominalism is basically the idea that abstract concepts are just names, labels, without any corresponding reality. Realism, on the other hand, argues that these concepts have like a real existence beyond just being names.
Okay, I think I'm following.
So if you apply that to like personality typing, it's like asking, is your type this fixed inherent part of who you are? That's the realist view. Or is it just a convenient label that doesn't fully capture the complexity of your being? That would be the nominalist view.
Oh, that's a profound question to consider. How much of our identity is actually rooted in, like, objective reality versus the labels and categories we've adopted?
Right. And for the source, it seems like this questioning led them to discover this different typing system called objective personality, or OP.
OP, okay.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by this. Have you spent much time with it?
Yeah, I have. It's fascinating. It expands on Jungian concepts, but in a really nuanced way. One of the key things OP does is it adds this layer of, get this, yin and yang instantiation to the cognitive functions.
Yin and yang instantiation.
Yeah. So it's basically suggesting a more dynamic and fluid understanding of personality.
So instead of seeing personality traits as, like, static and absolute,
Yeah.
OP offers a more flexible framework.
Yeah.
Recognizing that those traits can manifest in different ways, depending on the context.
Exactly. And it seems like the source was really drawn to OP because it felt more comprehensive, less constricting than other systems they'd run into. They were looking for a system that could, like, accommodate the complexities of their identity. And OP seemed to offer that possibility.
Yeah, it's like they were searching for a language that could, like, better reflect the fluidity and the contradictions in their sense of self.
Right, and maybe even help them reconcile this feeling of being forsaken.
Right.
We've got this person, like, wrestling with the weight of their ancestors' choices, grappling with language itself, searching for belonging. It's a lot. It is, yeah, absolutely. And if we kind of zoom out a bit here, I think it brings up some interesting questions about, like, the human need to create systems and frameworks in the first place. Like, why do we feel this urge to categorize and label everything, even ourselves?
Well, I think it's about trying to make sense of the world, right?
Yeah.
The world can feel chaotic and unpredictable.
For sure.
And systems give us order, a way to, like, understand our place in the grand scheme of things. But, and this is what I think is so interesting about this person's experience, is that sometimes those systems can start to feel like cages.
That's a great point. When the framework that we're using it no longer fits our lived experience, it can become more of a hindrance than a help. And I think that's when we need to be willing to question those systems, to challenge the assumptions we've been operating under.
Right. And this person's journey, I think, is a powerful reminder that growth often involves shedding those old labels, like embracing the messiness of being human. And it's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
But it can be really liberating.
I agree. And I think that's where this feeling of being forsaken, it takes on this whole new dimension. It becomes less about being literally abandoned by someone. It's more about a sense of being disconnected from expectations.
Right.
And those expectations could come from, I don't know, your ancestors, society, even our own past selves.
So let's just recap for a second. We've explored this person's, their feelings of abandonment, their anti-natalist beliefs, this concept of technical linguistic debt, their search for belonging, their deep dive into psychological typing systems. What stands out to you as, like, the most significant takeaway from all of this?
To be honest, it's the self-awareness, the incredible self-awareness this person demonstrates. Like, they're willing to grapple with some really tough questions about, like, identity, existence, even the limitations of language. It's kind of unsettling, but it's also inspiring.
It makes you think about the power of introspection, right? This person's journey shows us that sometimes the most profound discoveries come from looking inward, from questioning, like, the very foundation of our beliefs and our self-perceptions.
Right, absolutely. And I think it also highlights the potential pitfalls of relying too heavily on, like, external frameworks for self-definition. I mean, systems like Jungian typology can be valuable tools for exploration, but they shouldn't become rigid boxes that limit our understanding of who we are.
Right. And it seemed like their encounter with objective personality did offer a glimmer of hope in that regard. It felt like a system that was more expansive, less constricting, more capable of accommodating, like, the complexities of their being.
What's really interesting about objective personality is that it emphasizes nuance and dynamism. So by incorporating this concept of, yin and yang instantiation, it acknowledges that even within a specific cognitive function, there's a range of expression, variation. It allows for a much more holistic view of the self. It recognizes that we're not just a collection of static traits, but we're complex beings with multifaceted personalities that evolve over time.
Right. It's like OP gave them permission to embrace the fullness of their being, to move beyond those limitations, the limitations of rigid labels and categories. And that, I think, brings us back to this initial feeling of being forsaken. Perhaps, in a way, this feeling is a catalyst for growth, a necessary stage in forging a more authentic and independent sense of self.
It's an intriguing thought, right? That sometimes feeling disconnected from the expectations of I don't know, others, even our ancestors, can push us to define ourselves on our own terms, to create our own meaning, our own sense of purpose, apart from the narratives that have been handed down to us.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey unpacking all of this. It's made me reflect on, well, on my own relationship with language, identity, and like the systems I use to navigate the world.
I think that's one of the most valuable things about these kinds of deep dives.
Yeah.
They challenge us to step outside our comfort zones, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to ultimately expand our understanding of ourselves and the human experience.
And sometimes that expansion involves feeling a little lost.
Right.
A little disconnected.
Yeah.
It might even involve questioning the very foundations that we've built our sense of self on.
But those moments of questioning, of feeling forsaken, can be incredibly powerful opportunities for transformation. They can push us to seek out new perspectives, challenge our assumptions, and ultimately become more fully ourselves.
What a profound thought. I'm going to be pondering this one for a while. This whole deep dive has been so mind-expanding. It's made me question so much of what I thought I knew about, like identity, belonging, and the human need to make sense of the world.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we're all constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
And the frameworks that we use to understand ourselves, well, they need to be flexible enough to accommodate that growth. Sometimes that means letting go of old labels, embracing uncertainty, and even feeling a bit lost along the way.
Okay, so we've really gone deep into this person's experience, feeling forsaken by their ancestors, and how that ties into, well, their anti-natalism, right? Their struggles with language, their search for, like, belonging in those systems, like psychological typing. But after all of this, what do you think? I mean, what does it all mean for you, dear listener? Does any of this resonate with your own experience?
I think what really strikes me is, well, this person's journey is obviously deeply personal, but it touches on something that's universal, right? I mean, we all grapple with these questions of identity, right? And, well, inheritance.
Yeah.
And the frameworks we use to make sense of the world. This whole deep dive has made me wonder, like, how much of who we are is actually determined by our lineage versus how much is shaped by our own choices and our experiences?
That's such a powerful question. It makes me think about the sources, well, their quest for a soul family. Like maybe feeling forsaken by, your biological ancestors can push us to seek connection in other ways, to find those people who, like, understand us on a deeper level, even if they aren't related by blood.
Totally. And I think that connects back to the idea of technical linguistic debt, right? If the language that we inherit, well, if it doesn't fully capture our experience, maybe feeling forsaken is kind of a prompt to create our own language, to find new ways to articulate who we are and what we believe.
So instead of being a totally negative experience, feeling forsaken could, like, be a catalyst for growth, for forging a more authentic sense of self.
Yeah, exactly. It can be an invitation to step outside of the predefined categories, to challenge the beliefs that we've inherited, and I think ultimately to embrace the complexities and the contradictions that make us unique.
This deep dive has been so thought-provoking. It's got me thinking, like, if feeling forsaken is this necessary stage in our personal evolution, what are the systems, what are the structures we need to question to really claim our own identities?
It's a really good question. And maybe, just maybe, the answer isn't about finding the perfect system or framework. Maybe it's about embracing that ongoing process of self-discovery, to constantly question and evolve and redefine who we are in relation to, well, the world around us.
Oh, wow. That is beautifully put. It reminds us that feeling forsaken, while it's definitely painful, can also be a catalyst for like profound growth and self-discovery. It can be the spark that ignites a journey towards a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, dear listener, we've reached the end of our deep dive. We started with this one person's feeling of being forsaken, and we ended up exploring, well, language, identity, belonging, the very nature of self-discovery. I really hope this conversation has left you with some new insights and maybe even a few more questions to ponder.
Yeah, remember, there aren't always easy answers when it comes to these big, like, existential questions, but the journey itself is what matters, the willingness to question, to explore, to just keep diving deeper into, the mysteries of human experience.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never ever stop seeking your own unique truth.